has landed.
I, Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Torch has been passed.
Retro News. It's a blast from the past.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Kendall, and this is Retro News, the show that digs through the archives of news history to bring you the important and not so important stories.
This week, our cameras are focused on the year 1934. We'll watch as an ancient town is uncovered after being buried by an erupting volcano 2,000 years ago, meet a lion that goes to town in a convertible, and last but not least, boxing cats. But first, let's take a look at one of the year's biggest stories.
In 1934, it stopped raining on the Great Plains. The worst drought in 50 years scorched the land from the Dakotas to Texas, 150,000 square miles. People called that part of the country the Dust Bowl. Under a relentless sun, farmland literally dried up and blew away. Powerful windstorms filled the air with topsoil, creating black blizzards that could choke livestock to death. Thousands of animals died of starvation and heat, too. These cows are eating leaves because there was no grain for them.
The Missouri River and many big streams had almost dried up. In Kansas and other wheat states, the grain in the fields was crispy, burnt by weeks of blistering heat. Farmers hauled water for miles in a desperate effort to try to save the corn crop, but the blazing sun blasted corn states too, leaving the farmers with nothing but shriveled stalks.
The drought lasted for 4 years until 1937. During that time, more than half of the people on the Great Plains moved away. Now let's go to Brennan and Rachel for innovations.
Our first innovation is from London.
It was created for race car drivers, but it would have come in pretty handy during a dust storm.
Goggles with windshield wipers might look silly, but they solved a serious problem. Back in 1934, race cars didn't have windshields or tops. Many races were lost because the driver's vision was clouded by dust or moisture on his goggles. These self-cleaning goggles were designed to wipe out that problem. The wipers are powered by a small fan that spins when wind is blown in the driver's face. Simple. No more mud in your eye.
Here's something for tired drivers. GM McClellan patented a metal collar that let drivers rest their necks on long trips. He said it would take the strain off the trapezius muscle. McClellan called his invention McEase because it made it easy to hold your head up. It was also handy for backseat drivers.
There were innovations in air travel, too. They call this one the flying pancake. This plane is called the Erupt, another attempt to make a plane everyone could own. The unusual wings curve all the way back to the tail, making it look like a flying pancake. Inventors say piloting this was as easy as driving a car. Look at that thing climb. Can't do this in a minivan. Park's easier, too.
Look out below! The Army is testing its new 600-pound bombs. In July of 1934, the Army dropped these monster bombs from 8,000 feet. Everything goes up when these come down. Usually, you only see craters like these on the moon.
In 1934, planes carried a lot of mail. In fact, they carried more mail than people. But when the government found that the private airlines were secretly overcharging for this service, they were fired. the job of delivering airmail was given to the Army. 12,000 miles of airlines were taken over by several hundred Army flyers. Their speedy fighting planes hit speeds of 130 miles an hour, fast for the time. There they go, birds of war, now on a mission of peace and utility. How different from the first time the Army flew the mail. 1918, President and Mrs. Wilson are out for the big event. The first airmail letters from the President to the New York Postmaster, and it inaugurates a new era in postal service. These historic pictures were taken by the Army Signal Corps and are among the prized possessions in the War Department archives. The pilot of the first flight was Lieutenant George L. Boyle. On this historic hop, only 4 sacks of mail were carried, but many of those letters are worth many times their weight in gold now to stamp collectors. With the President's Godspeed, the first U.S. airmail flyer takes off for New York in an old wartime Jenny and goes 25 miles without stopping.
May 28th, 1934. Doctors and scientists around the world are amazed at new mom Olivia Dion. She gave birth to quintuplets. That's 5 babies. At that time, they were the first quintuplets ever to survive for more than a day.
During the Great Depression, millions of Americans lost everything they owned. Many proud working-class families suddenly had no money to feed their children. Some even lost their homes. When President Roosevelt came into office, he said, "Our greatest primary task is to put people to work." He promised Americans a New Deal. This is the last day of Congress in June 1934. They are just about to adjourn after working hard all session on President Roosevelt's New Deal. They put many new programs into motion. Most of them were created to put an end to the Great Depression. The Congress approved spending billions of dollars to help farmers who were going broke. They funded the construction of dams, bridges, airports, hospitals, and schools. These projects were designed to create jobs and improve the economy. In the end, 34,000 projects would be completed, including the Grand Coulee Dam and the Lincoln Tunnel. The Congress also voted to speed up warship production. Shipyards went to work building thousands of new ships. The 73rd Congress made history. There's the adjournment. Speaker of the House Henry Rainey's gavel marked the end of the session. It was a record Congress that supported the President's New Deal proposals. Joining me now is Professor Whatsit to tell us more about the New Deal. Hi, Professor.
Hi, Kendall. What's on your mind?
We just saw that the New Deal put people to work building new dams, roads, and ships. Were there other kinds of jobs?
Oh, sure. Did you know that the same program that started all the construction also put lots of artists to work? Performers were hired to stage shows in communities around the country. Writers were hired to create guidebooks. Artists painted murals in public buildings. Even photographers had jobs documenting American life.
Other than jobs, what did the New Deal do for Americans?
Well, the New Deal established a maximum work week of 40 hours and set a minimum wage for workers. It also outlawed the employment of most children.
Wow! So the New Deal would get people jobs and then make sure that they were treated fairly by employers.
Oh, that's right. The New Deal also helped those who couldn't work, like the elderly and disabled, with Social Security Act.
How did that work?
Well, before Social Security, if you were too old or too sick to work, you'd have to rely on charity. Now, in those days, most people were raised to believe they should take care of themselves, so charity made them uncomfortable, and sometimes they wouldn't accept it. But Social Security worked more like a savings account. A little bit of money is taken out of each paycheck and placed in a special fund held by the government. When you are too old to work, the government sends you a check every month from that fund.
So, since they had earned the money to begin with, they felt comfortable taking it. It wasn't a handout.
No, that's right. The New Deal did a lot more than give people their jobs back. It restored their optimism and their pride.
Thanks, Professor. Now here's the retro quiz.
2 baby animals stayed hidden from their keepers at the St. Louis Zoo for 3 months during 1934. What kind of animals were they? I'll be back with the answer and a look at these shy babies later in the show.
August 13th, 1934, the first installment of the Little Abner comic strip appears in 8 newspapers, created by cartoonist Al Capp. Abner, a professional mattress tester, graced the funny pages for 43 years.
During the Great Depression, so many people were out of work that soup kitchens were set up all over the country to feed people who could no longer feed themselves. More than a quarter of the American population survived on handouts and begging. These were the first people to be helped by the New Deal programs. Brandy Mitchell has more.
With the New Deal, President Roosevelt hoped to end the Depression and help people get back on their feet. He thought the Tennessee River Valley needed special attention. Families here had struggled to survive for decades. So the Tennessee Valley Authority was created. This agency worked to make the valley a better place to live. One of the many ways they helped was by building dams. These projects brought both electricity and jobs to the valley. Thousands of unemployed men are working here at Muscle Shoals, hurrying to finish the General Joe Wheeler Dam. It was a key part of the plan to control floods and harness the power of water to make electricity for the Tennessee Valley. It created a huge reservoir extending more than 80 miles upriver. Here, workmen are preparing a big blast. More than 5,000 sticks of dynamite are being planted in drill holes as everything is cleared. Stand by. There's the signal. The fuse is touched off, and there she goes. Watch out below. Another way President Roosevelt put people back to work was through the Civilian Conservation Corps, or CCC for short. The program gave unemployed men food, shelter, and jobs, preserving America's natural resources. Within the first 5 months of the program, the CCC hired 300,000 young men. Here, 60,000 new recruits are being enlisted. 6,000 of them will be trained here before being sent to various forest camps throughout the country. The folks at home would soon hear tales of their life in the open air. Meanwhile, they learned how to work together to build roads and dams, plant trees, even check forest fires. Many of the men seen here are World War I veterans who have lost everything. Some are eating 3 meals a day for the first time in years. This program was a shot in the arm for the men and for the nation. It built morale, provided training, and improved the health of hundreds of thousands of penniless Americans.
Times were tough in 1934, but Americans still found time for a little fun, like this annual event in Long Beach, California. You're not seeing double. They are all twins. It's the 7th annual Twin Convention, and there are 300 of them, ranging from 2 months to 84 years in age. Albert and Alfred McCarter, they are 404 apiece. They win the old age prize. Uh-oh, who let these triplets into a twin party? Melvin and Earl Wood are youngsters of 43 years each. I don't know which is which. And here are the prize kids of the lot, Jesse and Judith Smith, with their twin goats, Bach and Doc. The oldest girls present are Martha and Mary Clendenson, 61 years each, and the youngest are Joan and Jean Lowell, 2 months. It's certainly a great party for twosomes.
July 4th, 1934, boxing great Joe Louis wins his first professional fight, knocking out Jack Kraken in the first round. In 1937, he would defeat James Braddock, the Cinderella Man, for the heavyweight championship of the world. Louis held the title for 12 straight years. No one has held it longer.
On July 25th, in 1934, Austria's leader, Chancellor Engelbert Dollfuss, was murdered. A group of Austrian Nazis, disguised as the Chancellor's own men, broke into his office and killed him. They took other members of Austria's government prisoner. The Nazis planned to take over the government and help Adolf Hitler of Germany take control of Austria. The event rocked the world. Vienna, the capital city, immediately became an armored camp with fighting in the streets. but the killers were quickly captured. More trouble was expected from the Nazis, but Premier Mussolini of Italy stepped in to help. Within a few hours of the tragedy in Vienna, 75,000 of Italy's troops were sent to stand on the Austrian borders. The Nazis and Hitler were stalled for the moment.
In 1865, William Booth, the minister, set out on a lonely quest to feed the hungry and house the poor in London. His Christian mission was soon called the Salvation Army. Booth discovered that poor people were not welcomed in most churches, so he hit the streets, where he could reach the people nobody wanted. Booth improved the horrible working conditions in the city for underpaid women and children. He and his wife pushed hard for women's equal rights. This persistence and commitment paid off. The Salvation Army has grown for over a century. The organization is now at work in over 100 countries. Salvation Army founder William Booth is this week's spiritual hero.
Here's a fashion show that's really gone to the dogs. Jean Hyman and her Pekingese Ping are just two of the fashionable couples on this runway. These women are really putting on the dog, fashion show that is. They're all dressed to the nines to raise money for a local Chicago charity. Kate Goodman's basket of baby terriers got a lot of oohs and ahs, but the bridal trio of Irish wolfhounds really stole the show. There was plenty of applause, but Jin here wouldn't settle for anything less than a kiss. Doggone, that was fun. Now let's take a look at the evening wear for 1934. The best salons were showing capes and dresses that were trimmed with ostrich feathers. The popular look in the 30s was a long, sleek line, very clingy. The fabrics were cut on the bias, making it possible to pull dresses on over your head. No zippers or buttons needed. This season, the evening gowns had long skirts that were split halfway to the knee to make walking and dancing easier. Short jackets with sequin trim added plenty of sparkle and glamour to these cocktail dresses.
September 1934 was more than the end of the baseball season. It was the end of the most legendary career the game had ever known. Home run king Babe Ruth was honored by the New York Yankees after 21 years in the majors. The Babe, looking to become a player coach, signed on a year later with the Boston Braves. He played only 28 games that season, but hit 6 home runs, then retired for good with 714, a record that stood for 40 years. Raised in an orphanage, the Bambino grew up to be one of the best and clearly the most famous baseball player of his time. An American icon, Babe Ruth. Now for more sports, here are Adriana and Michael.
In 1934, there was another Babe in the news.
Yeah, but he didn't use a bat to swing. Is this the next Tarzan? Imagine a 5-month-old baby who could swing on a bar and practically do a pull-up. There's little Floyd Everett Carter. He hadn't learned to walk yet, but showed the strength of 10 babies. Can you do this? Floyd could also do a stunt most grown-ups can't, sitting straight up from a prone position. I wonder what this diapered Hercules grew up to be.
Now from pint-sized to super-sized, take a look at these gargantuan grapplers. These battling behemoths faced off in June of 1934. Tama Nishiki, the #1 wrestling champ, is all primed for a big victory here. He aims to toss his challenger out of the ring or wreck the platform trying. I'd like to see any wrestler give one of those boys an airplane spin. But the game of the sumo wrestler is not to crush the other player, but to throw him out of the ring. And the bout is on, 2 tons of straining and grunting, in a championship sport that survived for more than 300 years. And crash, the champ spills the challenger out of the ring. What a fall! There they go again. And there's a second fall, but don't worry, They're not injured. Those boys can take it. A victory for Tama, the crowd favorite. And there's the windup, their way of taking a bow.
In the summer of 1934, the National Marble Tournament finals rolled into Ocean City, New Jersey. 10 marble champions from across the country battled for the top spot in this national event. That's 13-year-old Cliff Seaver from Springfield, Massachusetts. He's winning, knuckles down. Watch him shoot. He never misses. This game was the last in a contest that involved 30,000 shooters nationwide. Seaver won and was crowned American Marble King by the mayor of Ocean City. The crown was fun, but he also got $100, a bicycle, and a watch. No wonder he looked so happy.
Most golf pros will tell you to keep your eye on the ball. Here's one who takes that advice to a whole new level. This is Eddie Nunn, a gutsy golf instructor who taught golf addicts how to stand, hold, swing, and follow through. He sat in a little pit in front of the tee, protected by a wire net. From this vantage point, he could call their shots and see their mistakes from a gopher's eye view. His method was a big success, but Eddie was still a little jumpy.
On August 2, 1934, Paul von Hindenburg, president of the German Reich, died. The statesman was 86 years old. All of Germany idolized Hindenburg, and the rest of the world respected him. As Germans said goodbye to their beloved leader, Adolf Hitler, then the Chancellor of Germany, assumed the powers of the presidency and declared himself the supreme leader. Now, here's Adriana with our birthdays for 1934.
Make a wish and blow out the candles for these newsmakers born in 1934. Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space. The Russian cosmonaut went around the Earth in 1 hour and 48 minutes. Hank Aaron, a member of baseball's Hall of Fame. Aaron played in 25 All-Star games during his career and hit 755 home runs. That's more homers than anyone else, ever. And Ralph Nader, a tireless worker for the public good. Because of Ralph Nader's efforts, our cars are safer, our water and air are cleaner, and fewer people are hurt at work.
May 1934. Workers put the last rivet in the first completed tower of the Golden Gate Bridge. When finished, it was the longest suspension bridge in the world, extending 1.7 miles across the San Francisco Bay. The steel wire used in the bridge is enough to circle the Earth 3 times.
On a sunny August day in 79 AD, more than 2,000 years ago, Mount Vesuvius erupted in Italy. Before people could run away, the cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum were covered in lava and ash, preserving that moment in time forever, like a 3-dimensional snapshot. When Pompeii was uncovered in 1748, archaeologists found skeletons of people at work and bread still in the ovens. In 1934, the Italian government began to uncover Herculaneum. They found beautiful works of art and tables set for a meal that never came. There are some 2,000-year-old walnuts. I'll bet they're pretty yummy. That's the back of someone's silver mirror. Important Roman citizens lived here, and their homes were decorated by some of the best craftsmen of the age. What a peek into the past.
Here's the answer to the retro quiz. 2 baby animals stayed hidden from their keepers in the St. Louis Zoo for 3 months during 1934. What kind of animals were they? The answer? Twin bear cubs. Nip and Tuck are their names, and curiosity is their game. For 2 months, the keepers of the St. Louis Zoo heard little squeals coming from the big bear's cave, but no one was crazy enough to look inside. The 2 teddies were born in February, but Mom kept them in the cave until hibernation time was over in April. This is their first public appearance. They want to get a look at their new digs, but still stick pretty close to Mom. There's nothing like a mother bear for protection. Exploring is hungry work though, and pretty soon it's time for lunch. Ever see a little bear make a little pig out of himself? Looks like a mom is a real pushover.
Slim Jones was the kind of guy who believed in traveling light and cool in hot weather.
This trip, he flew to Newark, New Jersey, enclosed in a capsule of ice. Maybe he needed to chill. It was colder than a frozen Frappuccino in Slim's giant ice cube, but that didn't bother him. Just like a frozen strawberry, isn't he? Slim was 26 years old and should have known better, but he said this proved his vitality and resistance to the cold. So what? Getting him in the plane was a slippery job, but then he was off to Newark, the only human ice cream cone in captivity, vanilla nut ice cream.
Billy Mae Nelson trained her 2 Tomcats to box. They followed official ring rules perfectly. No one wanted a catastrophe. Here they're staging the battle of the 20th century in San Francisco's famous Chinatown. In this corner wearing white fur is Terrible Tom, Golden Gate title holder. The fight's right up his alley. The challenger is Battling Bill, a promising novice from Nob Hill who always lands on his feet. It's a fast bout, all right, but uh-oh, there's a knockout. Bill took a terrible wallop in the puss, and he's flat for the full count. Terrible Tom's the winner and still champion, and no caterwauling from the gallery either.
When you have places to go and things to do, it's nice to have a friend along. Marjorie Freeman liked to cruise through Hollywood in her convertible with a lion cub named Pal in the passenger seat. Pal liked to ride, but she wasn't big on shopping. She had a bit of a stubborn streak. Sometimes she even sat down on the job. But the big baby would do anything for ice cream, especially peach ice cream. She and Marjorie would enjoy a treat together before the drive home. We're not lying.
This is the last in our catalog of cat tales, the toddler who talks to jaguars. 2-year-old Patricia Ann Thompson made friends with these jaguar cubs. Although they were only 2 months old, the keepers at the Washington Park Zoo said the fuzzy babies could not be trusted as far as you could throw a grand piano. But Patricia proved them wrong. She trusted them and they never showed their claws. No teddy bears or dollies for this little girl. Her playmates were the cats. Meow.
That's our Retro News Report for this week.
Now here's the last laugh.
Awesome questions, kids.